Mira Business FM, the morning drive with me, Tim Elliott, and it's cultural heritage that we turn our attention to now and how it's driving new business experiences here in the UAE and also, I guess, across the Gulf as well. Tourism's up, of course, particularly here in the Emirates. Entrepreneurs are now finding new ways to turn cultural heritage into unique opportunities, from things like design, I guess, workshops, to curated experiences, to luxury products inspired by local traditions. What businesses are now doing is blending the past with the present and offering both locals and residents and expats and visitors innovative ways to connect with the region's history. My guest is an Emirati cultural entrepreneur. He's the founder of Tamashee. He's a registered cultural tour guide here in Dubai, and his name is Mohammed Kazim. And Mohammed, it's very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, Tim. Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in to join us today. Loads to talk about. Tamashee, first of all, what it means. Am I right in it's? I know it's to do with walking, and it's kind of. Is it to do with like bridging the past and the future or something like that? I'm looking for the translation.
Very close, Tim. So basically, what we did was we merged two words in Arabic. One word is meshi, and one word is yatamasha. Meshi means to walk, and yatamasha means compatibility. And as a brand, when we set up, we initially started as a footwear brand. And it had three social values, and each value, something was compatible with something. So for example, in our value preserving identity, the past was compatible with the present. In our value representing culture, the regional is compatible with the world. And in our value coloring lives, profitable business is compatible with doing good.
Okay, so you start as a footwear brand, and I mean that's part, but how do you get from footwear brand to full on, I don't know, is cultural ambassador a bit too much, but that's kind of where you are.
I'm laughing because I even don't know how that happened, but I think I have an idea.
Right.
But basically what we did was, in order to look for designs for every footwear collection, and in order to continue doing our social values, we needed to do some research. So we'd go to different areas of the Arabian Peninsula, the UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, and some of the other GCC countries. And we started just looking for content. And then, promoting this content on our Instagram, through our collections, through our designs. And eventually people would be like, why don't you take us with you? So we ended up launching cultural travel, and from cultural travel came cultural consultancy. Companies and government entities would reach out to us, asking us to please share some of this cultural information we've gathered, whether through design or through storytelling or through content or through even just reviewing content or creating strategies.
Okay. So, I mean, it used to be with the UAE, I mean, outside looking in, it used to be, I remember I went to Abu Dhabi years ago, and honestly, this is true, somebody said, so where in Wales is Abu Dhabi then? Because it sounds like a Welsh town. And I'm trying to explain a little bit further away than that. It's the other side of the world. But it used to be outside looking in, originally with tourism here. Lots of people come over for, it began with oil exploration and work and infrastructure and building, and then it became footballer destination of sun, sea and sand and all those things, and it's now become a much more cultural destination. I know at Jumeirah Mosque there's always been the cultural visits there, but that's ballooned into something else now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, look, a lot of times people say that the UAE lacks culture, lacks any kind of history. But the reality of the matter is that, the UAE, the Arabian Peninsula in general, was always very difficult because of the limited resources, specifically water resources. So most tribes would gather around water, and culture was created around water. And when you had limited resources, you had to create protocols. You had to create mannerisms in which you can share resources, or at least be able to, navigate through them without turbulence. And I don't say that there was no turbulence historically, but I mean, that gave birth to a lot of culture. This is not even looking at, prehistory, which is very rich. You have 8-million-year-old elephant footprints in Abu Dhabi. That's crazy. You have a serpent mount with bronze serpent motifs that was found in Al Qusais, which is right in the middle of the city. Dubai Marina has a Bronze Age tomb. My house is right in front of a Jumeirah archaeological site from the Abbasid era. So you have so much history.
You really do. I mean, I'm unaware of most of these things, and I feel slightly ignorant. But I mean, things have really started to open up, and I think maybe what you do is offer a window into another world, I think, for people. You make a very good point there. Dubai, the UAE, the region is maybe looked at by some people as not rich in cultural heritage, but it is the case that it is. And there are now these, it's available to people now, I think. We kind of forget that this was a really hard place to live not that long ago. It's pretty, it's far too hot for most of us.
That's true. That's true. And I think the challenge has always been is how can we package this in a way that's relevant to either the new generation or to someone coming from outside. I think it's always been for us. It's always been okay, history. It's our identity. But how do we package that in a way that makes it relevant to make it appealing to a younger generation, or also maybe a visiting or resident population that's not part of the identity of the region?
With you, I know. Okay, so Tamashee is a footwear brand with a very specific set of principles, I guess. Your career, I read, is healthcare and engineering as well. So there's a varied path, I suppose. But what led you? What got you so inspired in cultural entrepreneurship?
So my last position, I was the general manager of one of the assets of a sovereign wealth fund in Abu Dhabi, and I was running a spine surgery center. So I did the entire spectrum: engineering, healthcare.
You've done it all.
I did it all, from the feasibility side to the investment side to the actual management side.
Right.
But when we started Tamashee, it was around 2013 when I resigned from my job and I decided I want to do something. And we decided that for me, it was very fresh after the Arab Spring, and the media was entirely negative towards the region, to the point that we started doubting our own culture. Is there anything beautiful in our culture? That was a question mark going through my head. And I'm like, of course there is. It's just not being highlighted. So I think that was my main drive.
Okay.
And the fact that I reached a little bit of a bureaucratic ceiling at workplace.
Okay.
So I said, okay, let me put my efforts towards something that I can actually make results in or bring results in.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was my spark to shift.
I suppose there weren't many people doing that at that time either.
Yeah.
And it was you're kind of stepping into the unknown. So give us an example of a Tamashee project that blends heritage with this kind of contemporary attitude that you have.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, there's a mountain tribe in the UAE, specifically in Ras Al Khaimah, that has a wonderful folklore. They have wonderful culture. They have handicrafts of axe making, and they use these small axes. You may have seen some of these folklore. It's called a nedba, where there's a high-pitched yell, and then there are drums sometimes as well in another form of their folklore. But these guys, they use beautiful axes and they have beautiful waist daggers. And waist daggers would have, for the most part in the UAE, people would use waist daggers. So what we did was, I don't wear a dagger to the mall today, although I would love to.
I was going to say, I'm looking, but
I own one, but I just can't enter a mall with it. So what we ended up doing is we ended up taking there's these beautiful metallic rings that actually hold the dagger in place. It holds the waist belt in place. So we took those rings and we contemporized them. We used them as zipper heads for laptop sleeves. We used the beautiful patterns that were on the axes and put them onto a laptop sleeve or onto a wallet or onto footwear. And that way we preserve something very ingrained in our culture and very rooted, yet in a very contemporary way that makes sense to me, to you, to anyone who would be passing by the retail space.
You started to see more and more of these kinds of things. I was bought a T-shirt a couple of years ago, and it was part of the keffiyeh, the Palestinian headdress, and I really like that. I feel like it's got a real sort of contemporary identity, and it's just a pocket on a T-shirt. Those kinds of things, and it's also a little bit different from the traditional kind of silver dow or the coffee pot that we've all seen to death, really.
Correct. And I think that's going back to the relevance point. Like you need to make it relevant. You need to make it appealing to the audience, to all audiences. And the UAE being such a diverse place, I think it's almost a duty for us to be able to take this culture and export it, but in a way that's relevant to everyone.
Yeah. Okay. Without there's always this balance, isn't there, between making something accessible, but a little bit too saturated, a little bit too overpopular, and you have to kind of walk that very fine line, I guess. What's the appetite like, Mohammed, for cultural experiences? You're in this industry for what, 12, 13 years now. What's the appetite like for locals broadly, as in residents, people that live in the UAE, and for tourists?
I think it's growing more and more, and with us, about 30% of the people that travel with us or that buy our products are non-Arabs. About 20% are non-GCC Arabs, and about 50% are GCC Arabs, mainly being Emiratis and Saudis, and Kuwaitis. But I think it's growing. We're seeing this demand from all aspects. We even have visitors, not residents, that come from across the world. Like we have a lady who's become a dear friend now, who traveled with me. She's from Mexico, lived for a bit in Egypt, but decided to travel with Tamashee to different areas in Saudi Arabia as well as the UAE. So that for me is beautiful.
Yeah, that's very cool. What kinds of experiences do people come to you for? Because I know you do lots of different things. I know that, but I mean, it always struck me. But if I have family come over, I know it's corny, but I always say the desert trip is a thing you should do, because there's something about that. It's just being in the desert. There's something about being in the desert. Forget the four-wheel drive experience. But what kinds of, I'm not saying that that's what you're doing. I know you do other stuff, obviously. But what kinds of experiences do you find people are demanding or really looking for?
So the desert is beautiful, and it's a very important part. I mean, I think that's another thing. See, the UAE is very diverse in its landscapes. We have deserts, we have oases, we have mountains, we have plains, and we have the coast. And each one of these comes with a culture. I think what people want to see is that we're not just monotone. We have more than one layer of culture. So yes, people want to go to the desert, and that has to be provided, and they want to do something authentic. So at the same time, they want to see the old homes in Al Fahedi, in Al Shindagha. They want to learn about the architecture. They want to know why the architecture is such. They want to learn about the food. They want to know why the food is different layers. If you have 5 different landscapes, that means you have 5 different types of food, and how each one affected the other, and the historical layers of that, how it evolved to reach where it is today. That brings me to another point, which is we always try so hard to preserve culture or preserve identity, and we always go back to a point in time where we think that identity was static. But identity really evolved, and it continues to evolve. And that's the part where I think the oil development burst that happened after the 60s made that development stop. And we're trying to hold on to that old part. But what we do at Tamashee is we actually try to take that old part, try to develop it organically to be able to go with the modern times.
Culture's like language, isn't it? It's continually developing and moving forward, or perhaps sideways. It's a hard thing to pin down. It's challenging, though, I guess. You're balancing kind of preservation of heritage, the preservation of culture, trying to pinpoint that. But obviously you work in a modern age. You have objectives that you want to do. How do you walk that line?
It's also challenging because, again, you have people who really think culture should be one way. And when it comes to...
The old ways are the best ways. Yeah.
Exactly. And when you come and tamper with it, they're like, no. So I think what we try to do is we try to preserve the soul of the culture. So we would never, for example, one of the things I can give you as an example, in Arabic culture, the foot is considered something low. And if you put something under your foot, it would be demeaning. So having cultural patterns on footwear is a challenging thing on its own. So how do you package that, and how do you put it out there? Of course, we do it in a very contemporary way where it's not too obvious. If I took an obvious pattern or obvious calligraphy, put it on footwear, it would be demeaning to the Arabic language. But when you take an abstract version of that, you suddenly diffuse the tension and suddenly become something new. So it's no longer demeaning the footwear. So again, we think about these things and how we package them and how we message them to or release them to a broader audience.
Okay, so you can see the evolution from the footwear brand into everything that you're doing now as well.
Exactly, yes. I think, and that's what happened, right? So when we started researching for design, people started asking us to travel, that they would want to travel with us. And then companies and government entities were asking us for consulting help, either with design, storytelling, or strategy. So I think these kind of things all organically came just from a research base.
You're doing the right thing, I suppose. So if I was to come to you and say, look, Mohammed, I want to do something really that really teaches me about the history of, I don't know, Ras Al Khaimah or just the UAE? Can I go to, spend some time with the mountain tribes and see those daggers, if you like? Could I buy one of those? Whatever. What would you kind of think? Here's an itinerary that I think you might be interested in. What kinds of things would you offer?
I mean, it depends on the person and their interests, but in general, like people like a combination of outdoor stuff. They like to meet people, and they like to also buy things or taste things or eat things.
Yeah, for
So,
sure.
so what I usually do is at least in the UAE, I tell people to go to mountain villages where culture is still very much alive in their daily lives. We have a beautiful village called Taiba, for example, in Fujairah. Taiba is close to Masafi. Most people may have heard of Masafi, but there's a nice little fort. There's a little Airbnb there. There's a nice private museum where people can go just speak to the locals and learn so much from. Or they can register on a Tamashee trip, and we can take them on a full-on immersion.
Okay. I mean, most of the work that you do is here in the UAE, but obviously you're very much a person that is aware of the region. You're part of a much bigger region. You take trips to Saudi Arabia as well. And I know you're just back. I want to sort of concentrate on the UAE, but I'm fascinated with this trip that you just got in, late last night, didn't
Yes.
you? From a trip to Saudi Arabia.
Yes, I was in the northern part of Saudi Arabia, a place called Al Jouf. It borders Jordan, and the tribes there are very similar to the Jordanian tribes as well. It's a mixed place, so it has a lot of history. One of the most popular towns there is Domat al Jandal, which is known as Adumato, as documented by the Romans. And also in the Bible, I think it's known as Doma. And Doma was one of the sons of Ishmael. So you can imagine how much history there is.
I know, I can. And that's how did that come about? Was that just a website inquiry? How does it happen?
When we were researching initially, for us, it was about getting new information about the Arabian Peninsula. And I think one of the things that came up for me was that there's large olive oil production coming from Saudi, and I was like, this is very interesting. Where did the olive trees come from? So I started looking, and then found all these beautiful details about this region, the history, the forts. There's a fort called Marad that Queen Zenobia of Palmyra mentioned that she couldn't penetrate. So again, there's so many beautiful facts that came out. I was like, you know what, I should do a trip here, and we started promoting it, and people started signing up.
So it's as much, I think. I mean, I get the feeling, and tell me if I'm wrong, but your attitude, and I mean that in a positive way, is very much, that's cool. I'm going to go and look at that, and people should be aware of that. People should be, there should be an opportunity to experience that. Is that kind of your mindset?
Definitely. I mean, I like to think I'm very entrepreneurial in my thinking. So I try to, and not from a business point of view, but more from a making things happen point of view. And I think, of course, for me, showing the beauty of the Arabian Peninsula is a passion. Whether it's in Saudi, whether it's in the UAE, whether it's in Oman or any of the other GCC countries, and hopefully when things stabilize, Yemen as well. Yemen is beautiful. It has so many beautiful cultural elements and history that needs to be presented to the world. In fact, on that point, in Sharjah, they found a tombstone with ancient Southern Arabian script, which you can see also in Yemen, which is beautiful. I think the link of the Arabian Peninsula, even historically, has been so rich.
It's nice to hear that there's a lot more. Traditionally, it's this region. It's Lawrence of Arabia. To lots of people outside, it's just sand and there are camels and there's an oasis there. That's what it is. But if you travel to Yemen or Oman, topographically, geographically, completely different in almost every way. And as you say, look at what we have here in the UAE, from the mountains to the sea to the deserts. To get that across to people, I think it's really important. It's kind of going to be for you. It's going to be a life's work, Mohammed.
I think it's already been.
It seems like it.
Almost a quarter of my life spent in doing this. But there's that part. There's also the mannerisms part. I think we tend to neglect that. So, for example, in Wilfred Thistsinger's book, or I think maybe it was Wilfred Thissinger in Arabian Sands. He mentions a story of a Bedouin man throwing a date pit in a fire pit, actually, and the Bedouins getting angry. He threw the date pit in the fire, and the Bedouins got angry because they saw that as a resource. and a resource is being wasted. So imagine the mannerisms, the mindfulness of wastage and how to preserve resources. All these things, they stayed in our culture in one way or another.
Yeah.
Some things may have changed, but some things stayed very, very much ingrained in us. So yeah, all this is definitely a life's work.
I mean, but that's something worth preserving, isn't it? That attitude to, you could use that for something else. That's something that we've kind of unlearned, I think. That book, Wilfred Thester's book, Arabian Peninsula, that's a must-read, I think, to anybody that is spending any time in this region, in this country. Let me ask you a couple of quick questions. We've only got a few minutes left. How do you see Tamashee evolving over the next 5 years? What have you got planned? And I'm thinking in terms of experiences. And the trick now, I guess, is you're going to be outreaching, further, broader, more internationally, aren't you?
Looking back 5 years, right?
Okay.
When I was asked this question, I said I wanted to expand each one of Tamashee's streams, which is travel, consulting, as well as footwear. I think there's still room to expand in each one of them, and I can give an example. So, for example, for trips, we used to do trips to Amman, to Al Dakhiliya, but they were just basic trips. But now I go more specific. So we go into harvest seasons. I'm doing a trip for the sugarcane harvest season in a week's time.
Okay.
We did a pomegranate harvest season. So we're going more specific. And so in every part of Tamashee's journey, I'd like to not just specialize, but also diversify and increase the scale of what we're doing. That would be my ideal 5-year plan. And perhaps take all this knowledge and give it to some government entity somehow, either as a full-time employee or as an advisor. I think that would be something that I would like to do on a personal level.
Okay, so what about your corporate friends from back in the day before you launched and decided, no, I'm going off on my own? How have they reacted to what you've been doing?
So I think what happens with corporates is that you get sucked into routine, and for most of my friends who remain, they're doing very well. They're very high up in either in semi-government companies or in the government, and they're doing very well. But one thing I notice is they're stuck in routine, and that routine kind of disconnects them from I don't want to say the reality, but disconnects them from life. And I think life is. It's so important to live, to meet people of all different levels, to learn about history, to learn about its implications on the future. I think that's the main difference. And if you ask me, what do they think? They probably think I'm crazy.
They might be right. You never know.
I agree on that.
Final question for you then. If I'll probably think of more questions. I always do that. Final question, then I think, oh no, I have to ask this as well. What advice do you give to people? You've been doing this for a long time, and you started in a sector that was underrepresented, kind of not unexplored, but there was stuff to learn, obviously. If you want to, combine business and business acumen, the things you've learned, with having a real impact culturally, and it's important to do that, I think. We're broadly very multicultural, but when you're multicultural, you lose parts of, inherent culture, I think. What advice would you give to somebody thinking of a course like that?
I think one of the things that immediately comes to mind is that there's not enough information, and that information is difficult to get, and that the industry seems underdeveloped, so I don't want to waste my time on it. So what I would say is actually just take the initiative. And as soon as you take the initiative, you'll see things are available and information is available. It's come such a long way in the last 10 years. I remember 10 years or 12 years ago when I was looking for information, I had to go back to Orientalist books to be able to learn about the peninsula. But today, fast forward 12 years, you have so many Arab scholars that have written from an Arab point of view. So there's more content available. There's more room to do things. And I think that, and it will continue to be so, I believe, because each one of the GCC countries at least has a cultural strategy in place, which is promoting cultural initiatives. So I think my advice would be just take the initiative, just look for it, just search under the surface, and you'll find a ton of information and a ton of things you can do.
And what about in terms of when you started this? How was support for a venture like this? Were people... maybe you are the crazy man starting a venture like this, but did you feel that you were supported? when you launched?
Look, the government has some good initiatives for entrepreneurs and SMEs. However, they're superficial initiatives. So they support. I don't say they don't support, but I think most of the work was done by us. Their support definitely gave us help, especially in tough times, like in times when COVID lockdowns happened and travel was difficult. We got some good support. We got some good contracts from government entities or semi-government entities, which kept us going. And I would never discount what they've done for us. But the social support, and the kind of support that would make sense to us wasn't available, and I think still probably isn't available because there's not many people doing what we do. And if we did, I'm sure that support would come. If there was enough of us, that support would come because our voice would be heard.
There's room to grow, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay in touch, and hopefully you'll come back and visit us before the 5-year timeline that I kind of set out there. Mohammed Kazim is a cultural entrepreneur. That's a way of putting it?
You could put it
I
that
could
way.
put it that way. He's the founder of Tamashee. He's a registered cultural tour guide here in Dubai for the UAE and beyond as well. It's been fascinating. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate you coming in. This is Mira Business FM. It's the Morning Drive.